Well, everyone, it is 6:03. I will go ahead and start in so that we are cognizant of everyone's time tonight. So hello and welcome. My name is Victoria Castor. I am the Water Conservation and Sustainability Coordinator for the City of Peoria. And we are very excited to have you join us tonight as we talk about this is our third town hall session, and our topics tonight are going to be waste and water. And so we're very excited that you joined us for this conversation. I also want to call out our wonderful partners, which is ASU Project Cities. So I'm working with 4 amazing grad students to kind of help in the background of this particular phase of our sustainability plan. And they are graciously helping us host these town hall events. And so thank you so much to Stephen, to Kayla, to Vanessa, to Lauren, and to Casey. We appreciate your help in this endeavor. So before I jump in and we start going through all the agenda items, I do want to give a really quick background as to why this particular version of the sustainability plan is a little bit different than what we have done in the past. So Peoria had a sustainability plan that was created back in 2012. It was tweaked a little bit throughout the years, especially in 2016, but it has not really had an overhaul. And so we had figured it was time for that overhaul. And since we were kind of starting from the ground up, we really wanted to change it a little bit. And by that, we really want this to be a community-driven plan. So we really want to hear the community's vision and what the needs are for sustainability in Peoria and make sure that this plan matches those needs. So that's why your attendance and your input is really critical in this process, because we want to make sure that we are addressing the sustainability needs in our community. So thank you again for joining us. Next slide. So our first topic will be waste management. So we defined this topic as waste management is to promote the conservation of natural resources through sustainable materials management, enacting programs and practices that encourage all sectors, manufacturers, retailers, and customers to act consciously to reduce, reuse, and recycle waste. So along with each topic description, we have also created some example goals. So these are things to just help give a clearer idea of what would fit in this category. So the first one is to increase opportunities for residential, businesses, multifamily, and municipal recycling in the community. Then our last one would be to promote sustainable purchasing guidelines to increase the city's use of environmentally friendly products, to decrease waste and increase the use of recycled materials. So that one sits a little bit more in home with the municipality and some things that we can do internally. So we have an amazing staff member that is an expert in this field that is joining us today. We have Becky Borquez. She is the environmental coordinator for the solid waste department. And so she is our expert to help answer any questions and to kind of guide this particular conversation. So we're going to go into the next slide, and then they're going to transition into, it's called a whiteboard format. So it's this great new tool that lets us be able to, in real time, write down notes and try and capture what's being said. And so it takes us a moment to switch gears over to that slide, but that giving a heads up that that's why there'll be a little bit of a pause in the presentation as we switch over to whiteboard. So as we're switching over to the whiteboard, Becky, did you have any fun facts or anything kind of new and exciting in the waste or recycling realm to share with our residents?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Some of the new programs that the solid waste department is going to launch is a pilot green waste program. We started the first phase of that on 95th Avenue, and the first pickup we had 7.5 tons. That's a lot of green waste organics, and they are being they are going to the composting facility, so that's really neat. We will move this program along up to Thunderbird and 83rd Avenue, And if it's successful, we probably will present it to council and see if we can implement it citywide. Another exciting program that's happening in solid waste recycling is that we're also doing a blue lit pilot program. We found through research that residents are moving in from other states or other cities and they are confused about the color of our recycle can, which is cocoa brown. So we will be changing the lids on some of the containers to blue with an in mold sticker or stamp that will let residents know what is recyclable and what belongs in the trash. Those are two exciting programs that we're currently working on.
Excellent. I'm excited about I know the green waste program is something that had been cooking in the books for a long time that finally, we were able to get a pilot started. So that's really exciting that that's going to be composted now instead of just going with the bulk trash. So, and the blue lid program, these are both really exciting and we're looking forward to see kind of those results as those programs roll out. So that being said, we open the floor for anyone that has any questions for Becky relating to solid waste or recycling in Peoria, or also if you have any ideas or any actions or kind of a vision of what you think are some things that we should be focusing on in our sustainability plan related to waste. I will mention that we did not before that we have the chat feature, so feel free to unmute and just speak up. Or you can also type in the chat and we are monitoring that and we'll answer questions that way as well. I'll give a moment for folks to be able to unmute. So Becky, when it comes to the green waste, they're composting it. What is the plan for the compost as of right now?
Well, the company that we're taking it to is provides it to residents, so that's people can use it for their gardening at home. But also, it's very interesting that our sports complex area also composts a lot of their mulch, so it's mulch and used back into the fields. So that's another exciting composting program going on.
That's great. And it's been great to hear that the green waste that we're taking, we're composting, but that it can go right back into Peoria and kind of keep that circle tight. So that's exciting that we can kind of close that loop there. So does anyone else have any comments or questions for us on solid waste and recycling? Within this particular category, we are also hoping to get ideas of actions or goals. So if there's anything that you think, the city should really take a stance or have a goal related to, we are of course open to those. Looks like we just got some in the chat. So Carla asked, are there any programs for household sorting for recycling so that it facilitates the process?
That's a very good question. Currently, the city of Peoria we have a problem with our contamination in the can, and that's probably what your question relates to. We have what we call a commingle program. That means that you don't need to sort the material. All you need to do is toss it in one can, and the sorting will happen at the recycling center. At the recycling center, we currently are using the City of Phoenix material recovery facility. And we have invested into that facility so that they can upgrade the equipment. For example, the magnets that were being used, how fast the conveyor belts will go, that will allow the staff to sort the good material and toss out the garbage. But when it comes to what you're putting at the curbside, we try to make it as easy as possible. We have put up on our website a really nice tool called the Recycle Right Wizard, that in case you have a question whether the material is recyclable or not, you type in the name and the wizard will let you know what container to place it in.
I love that new tool. I think it's super exciting. If you have any questions, it's really easy to access and just type it in and to see where that goes, which bin it goes into. Say Brielle says, I love the changes for the recycle bin lid. it's true. We have so many neighbors who have just moved from out of state, and they always have recurring questions relating to recycling. Which bin does it go in too? So I think that will be a very interesting pilot. Looks like Karen had also had a question. She said, other cities give away composting bins. And I know, Becky, that we offer something similar, if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yes, we do offer our old containers that are broken. We cut them up and drill some holes in them and make them composters. They are free of charge to our residents. All they have to do is send an email requesting one to the recycle@peoriaaz.gov, and it will be delivered to your home. We also provide you with a composting recipe to make the process easier and classes on composting.
Yes, we actually just had a class on composting. It was a virtual one in November. If you are curious about learning about that, you can just go to Peoria's Digital Peoria, our YouTube page, and click on the sustainability playlist, and that class is right there for anyone to view at any time. So Brett has a question. Does solid waste work directly with any businesses to help reduce their waste streams to ensure a higher percentage of their waste is diverted from the landfill?
I love that question. We are currently working on a Green Ambassador program in which businesses can contact the city of Peoria and apply for a certification as a green business. And you will have access to our resources, such as our experts in waste, in teaching you or talking to you about how to divert material from the landfill onto your recycling, because keep in mind that that will save you money when it comes to the number of days of service that you need in your garbage. So yes, send us an email if you're interested, and we will have one of our commercial experts contact you.
Excellent. What a great program. I'm excited about that. We've had conversations about trying to join some water conservation items in with that program as well. So expect that to kind of grow and shift as that program continues as well. But that's such a great resource. For Stephen had posted a link to learn more about getting a compost bin to our website. So if you're interested in that, there's a link right there in the comments. So Karen had a follow-up question. Smaller bins are difficult to come by. Will you have two sizes of bins?
We have two sizes for the curbside containers. We have a 60-gallon and a 90-gallon. And those can be requested online at www.peoriaz.gov/solid waste.
And when it comes to the composting, the free ones, do those ones come in different sizes, or is it just whatever you guys have that you're recycling out of the typical rotation?
The composters are 90 gallons. Keep in mind that if we use the smaller containers, the compost process will be delayed, or it doesn't heat up as fast as a 90 gallons. So for that reason, we stick to the 90 gallons.
That makes sense. I try and compost occasionally. I don't give it the time I probably need to, but you have to have some room to turn that properly too. So that's probably one of the trickier things, is making sure that gets turned. Or you can be lazy like me and just leave it be and add water and just keep scraping off of the bottom as well. But it's nice to have that ability to turn the pile a little bit easier. And then it looks like there's a link that was posted to there as well. All right, great questions. What an exciting conversation, and such good things that are happening already in recycling and solid waste. So these are wonderful things that we hope to grow within our sustainability plan as well, and make sure that we're highlighting some of these success and this progress that's already been going forward. So Carla, for composting, is there a program that provides pickup of the material composted?
We currently do not have a composting program from curbside. We have started with a green organics at this point, but we never know what new programs will be coming up. So just keep in touch with our website.
And if you have an abundance of compost, I guarantee, especially if it's the good stuff, your neighbors will happily take some off of your hands for their garden beds and for their vegetable gardens. Each season putting about an inch on the surface of those high use areas, flower beds, vegetable gardens, that compost goes really quickly. So if you have an abundance, I bet you that there's some folks that would be happy to help share the wealth with that. So Brett has a question. Let's see. So a resident asked me to pass along to and ask to increase the number of curbside bulk trash pickups each year.
Okay, this is a little tough question, but we currently have 3 times a year bulk pickup. I know that there's other cities like Phoenix that has a monthly, or Glendale. However, there's a cost to put those programs together. The number of pickups. Currently, the city of Peoria is one of the lowest cities in our race. We're at 1529. When we compare that to Glendale and Phoenix, that are probably at $30 a month. And for that reason, we currently are at 3 times a year. Now, twice a year, I'm sorry. I said 3 times, it's twice a year. We do offer other alternatives such as landfill, and it's $1.26 per 100 pounds. So that's affordable. And we also offer special hauls in which we can pick up from your home for a fee also.
So there are other options available if you really need it, but they'll just be like an added cost and something you'll have to just schedule with the solid waste group ahead of time. Excellent. All right. So I will now just pause for about 30 seconds here to see if any other questions pop in, or again, feel free to unmute and speak up as well.
Yeah, I was curious about kind of any more information about the specs on that green waste pilot, like what part of the community did you sample, multiple neighborhoods, and do you see, kind of what do you see for next steps?
Currently, we selected 3 zones. I know that one of the zones was zone 3, and that is 95th Avenue, 94th Avenue, the bigger lots that have a lot of green material. And we're also going to move up to 83rd and Thunderbird, which is another acre homes in that area. So because they have such a high amount of organics, we wanted to try it out in that area. But as soon as we're done with 3 zones, then we're going to have to present it to council and get direction as to where we go from there. The material is being taken right now to up on Dyser Road in Olive. There's a organics farm there. But until we get all the numbers, we won't know the participation and success of the program. But I can say that by picking 2 streets, we collected 7.5 tons. That's very successful.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
That's why these pilot programs are so great, because it gives us a way to try it and see, but really collect that data to make sure that whatever we move forward with is cost effective and also a benefit for the city. And so it's always nice to kind of be able to try out new things and see how they go before making that final decision. And it gives us more information to bring to council to share what those benefits are. All right, wonderful. Well, I will pause again for about 30 seconds to see what else comes through. So let's see, Brett, what are the top items we should keep out of the recycling bin to ensure the recycled materials are not sent to the landfill?
Oh, I love this question, and I can talk on hours on this topic, but I'll keep it short. Contamination is one of the biggest issues in the city of Peoria, and it impacts our revenues that we generate. We did an audit in one specific area, and the contamination rate was 47%. You know, that means 47% of what was in that load was trash. So we did education, we tagged the containers, and we were successful in lowering that to 22% within 4 weeks. So people will change, but some of the biggest problems that we find are plastic bags, diapers. I don't know why, but diapers seems to be very popular. Yard waste. And the other one is that we get people that use it just as a garbage can. So they put textiles, household trash, food, things like that. But plastic bag, I said, takes the price on that one of the biggest contaminants.
What's nice is that a lot of our grocery stores now have that bin that's either outside or right inside by their customer service, where you can take all those old grocery bags and recycle them there. I know that it's like my household, that stash that it builds up over time and starts taking over whatever counter you're putting them in. So it's like every once a month you gotta like collect them all together and make a trip to the grocery store to try and recycle those bags separately.
And Victoria, another interesting fact is that in Peoria, we're not landfilling our recyclables. They actually are being recycled. And our contract with the city of Phoenix is amazing because they have an innovative facility in which they come up with new ideas on how to collect and recover this material. And I want to see one that will be coming up pretty soon, which is recovery of plastics 1 through 7. So that will be done locally here and will reduce the cost of transporting that. We also have locally a company that recycles the glass. So that's also neat.
Yeah. Glass is a pet peeve of mine because it lasts for like 1,000,000 years. It's something crazy. And glass is inert. So it's just basically silica or sand that's been melted down and created, so it can be made into anything else that's glass. So for it to just sit in the landfill, just taking up space, always boggles my mind. So I'm super excited that we have had that partnership and they have a place to use glass. Since I know there are other cities in the valley that had to either stop their recycling completely or had to pull glass as one of their recyclables because they just can't find a use for it. So that's great to hear that we are still able to do that. Wonderful. Well, I will pause and see if there's any other questions before we move on to our next topic. But what some wonderful things that we have learned and been able to kind of discuss a little bit. Great things that are already going on. So woohoo for the solid waste team. All right. If you don't see any other questions at this time, we'll talk about at the very end how you can continue to provide us some insight. If you didn't get a chance today, we will have a couple different options for you to still be able to give us some input back on these topics. So thank you, Becky. We will now cut back to our PowerPoint slide as we then jump into water resources. All right, so water resources, somehow we're already in the 20th of January. The year is starting to like fly by. We'll go to the next slide. Excellent. So I'm going to have to, there we go. So for some reason, this slide is a little bit too big for my screen. So just ignore me as I read off of my paper so that I can read it all for you. So water resources are to focus on continual planning and investment in water resources and distribution to enhance the quality, reliability, and resiliency of our water supply for future generations. This includes being a leader in water conservation and strategic water planning to ensure a sustainable water supply. Being that we live in the desert, having a sustainable and resilient water supply, of course, is key for everyone. So our first example goal is to create a redundant and resilient water system that can adequately provide water to all customers under a variety of climatic, or watershed situations. We know that we have shifts in our rainfall and in our water sources, so making sure that we are accounting for that. And then our second goal is to improve physical water infrastructure to maximize system efficiency while continuing to provide superb water quality. So our expert that is joining us from city staff tonight is Brett Fleck. He is our water resources planning administrator. So he'll be able to answer questions that come up about our water supply here in the desert. So give us a moment here as we shift back from the PowerPoint slides over to the whiteboard screen again. So Brett, you can take this time to provide us one of those fun facts that you have about water here in Peoria.
Yeah, one of the things that I think a lot of people know about but don't maybe understand the extent of is we store a lot of water, a lot of renewable water from rivers and like the Colorado River underground for times when there's maybe extended drought or surface water supplies change. And in fact, Peoria has stored over 5 years of the demand that we have for our cities underground. So while we would never withdraw all of that, an entire year's worth of supply in a year, it just really speaks to the magnitude of how much of that renewable supply that we have stored underground for the opposite of a rainy day.
Yeah, that's such a great thing and something that's very interesting. In Arizona, especially if you're coming from other areas of the country, you don't think about water supply in the long-term way that we have to here in Arizona. I mean, our reservoirs, our lakes are massive and they're really deep compared to a lot of other states that their water supply, so, because we have to account for these interesting times. So I always think water is such a fascinating thing here in our desert. So let's see, let me open up our chat here. So we'll open this up for, of course, questions or comments for water resources, and conservation is also wrapped in here.
And I have extra time too. So if anyone just wants to ask some questions about water, I love talking about it. Feel free.
Yes, and we're talking about the rain. So what a interesting time to have that water discussion. We finally broke our dry streak, which was way too long, and we finally got a rain in most of the places in the valley. So unfortunately, one rain is not really enough to make too much of a dent in what we need, but we will take whatever we can get. So Steve Roth has a question. What role does Lake Pleasant serve in the city supply?
That's a great question, and it's something that we get asked quite frequently because it's within the city. Pleasant is within the city limits, and it's one of the larger water bodies, open water bodies in central Arizona. Interestingly enough, Peoria doesn't receive any water directly from the lake directly into our systems. Lake Pleasant serves the city obviously recreationally, but the city does receive water from the lake indirectly. And so the lake is actually a stopping point on the way of the Central Arizona Project Canal. I'm sure you've seen the canal that runs from the Colorado River all the way through Phoenix and down to Tucson. And the Lake Pleasant acts as sort of a stopping point and a place that they can put water there to make sure that if there's something happens to the canal, they can always continue delivering water. And so the water from the Colorado River goes into the lake, and when it comes out of the lake, it goes back into the canal down, or I should say upstream, because I suppose it pumps it uphill. But it goes farther along the canal, and it reaches a treatment plant in that Glendale operates, and that we have a partnership with Glendale. And so at that point, we received water that was in Lake Pleasant. So while we don't receive it directly, Lake Pleasant does contribute to our water supply.
Excellent. And what a great question too. We see these massive bodies of water, and sometimes it's hard to figure out how that works within our own actual water supply. Another question to that was, is water evaporation a concern? So how does that play into our supply process, trying to account for evaporation?
Yeah, evaporation, as you definitely expect, plays a role anywhere in the Southwest where we have a lot of sun and a lot of heat. There's definitely evaporation that happens off of the open canals and the reservoirs like Lake Pleasant and things like that. Generally, those things are taken into account when we do water supply planning. But unfortunately, there's not a lot that we can do about it. One of the biggest things that we do about it is we store water underground where there is no evaporation. And that's one of the biggest benefits to using the natural resource that is our aquifer, the groundwater supplies, to be able to add to them and subtract from them on balance over time, and kind of use that underground area as a storage reservoir that is safe from evaporation.
Excellent. Yes. So I'm going to toss something out there. Something that other folks may not hear of a ton is, what is 100 years assured supply? This is something that we hear about in policy, but a lot of residents don't know until we have that conversation. So here's kind of the opportunity to open that up a little bit.
Yeah, it's called an assured water supply, and it's really really the cornerstone of sustainability in Central Arizona as far as our water supply goes. And to me, it's one of the most fantastic rules, regulations, policies that we have when it comes to water resources and the ability to provide our residents water for a long term. So a 100-year assured water supply is essentially the state's Department of Water Resources reviewing an application that we submit at least every 15 years, that the city of Peoria and others submit to the Department of Water Resources, where we prove to the state that we can supply all of the homes and the homes that we project are going to be built with water for at least 100 years. And it's not just paper, it's wet water that we go through an analysis, and the analysis has a lot of criteria. Can we afford to provide that water? Does the water exist? Do we have legal control over that water? Is the water of good quality? Is the water renewable? So there are a lot of different criteria that go into getting that 100-year assured water supply designation. But once you have it, it's really quite a feather in your cap for cities that are able to achieve it. And a question that I get asked all the time is, so we're going to run out in 101? Is that what's going to happen? And thankfully, people have thought of that question. It's a great question because it makes sense the way it's presented. But one of the beauties of the assured water supply designations is that we have to reapply at least every 15 years. So Peoria's next designation application we're working on now. And so we need to reprove another 100 years. So it's kind of this moving 100-year window that we reset every 15 years. And so when I'm very confident we will get our next designation approved. So in 2025, you will know that for the 100 years following that, that you can be assured that the city of Peoria will be able to supply your home and business with water.
I love this of our state as well. This is also something that is very unique to Arizona, because this was put back in place back in 1985. So we've been planning this way and have had these rules in place since the 80s, where a lot of states are just now catching up onto this type of planning. So we have another question. So Karen asked, are there plans on the state or city level to restrict water use for landscape?
Yeah, there actually are some restrictions that have to do, for example, with what type of plants that you can plant in certain areas, like with medians and things like that. There's actually a low water use plant list. There are other conservation requirements that I'm just reading the question again, sorry if you see me looking down. There are other conservation requirements that the state places on cities. I don't think the city currently has, other than the design review process going to the city, but I don't think the city has any particular restrictions. One of the biggest restrictions that gets brought to our attention from developers and prospective folks that are moving in is that there is a restriction on new lakes. So one of the most interesting things that I think about if you were to look at a map or a satellite picture of the Phoenix area, you can tell all of the developments that were built roughly before 1987. Because in 1987, the state of Arizona passed what's known as the Lakes Bill, and it restricted the ability to just build decorative lakes. And so it's kind of interesting that you can see how big the city or the metropolitan area of Phoenix was if you look at a map and find those decorative lakes and subdivisions. So that would be an example of a restriction on landscaping.
I can add to that one a little bit too. I know when it comes to our residential side, when it comes to development, I believe our city itself has a code and a rule in place that you can't be more than 20% turf of like the common areas that they have. So there is and part of that review process, part of that is making sure that there's not more grass than what is allowed.
Yeah, and you were asking about other plans to do more. I think we're always talking about ways to increase efficiency, particularly with outdoor water use, because outdoor water use is a very large proportion of overall water use, and that water is never collected back into the sewer system to be treated to be used again. That water gets, is evaporated and it's gone. So that's an area that we like to focus on for increasing efficiency. So great question.
And I'm tossing on the conservation side. We do have programs offered through Peoria's water conservation programs that help residents understand what the water needs are for their landscape and how to dial that in to make sure that you're watering what the plants need and we're not wasting. So if you check out our website, we've got a bunch of amazing resources that are specific right here to our low desert. As well as now we offer landscape consultations to residents as well. So we have some things in our pocket that we can help folks make sure that they're dialing in on the water use in the landscape a little bit better. So another question is, how safe is the underground reservoir from pollutants?
That's a great question. And the short answer to that is safe as we manage it. So the underground aquifers that naturally exist have different, not chemicals, but minerals and things like that in them. And so sometimes water, when it's pumped to the surface from a groundwater well, is so clean that you can just put chlorine in it to make sure there's no bacteria or anything, and you can put it right into the system. It's that clean. And other times the water from the ground requires a little more treatment because it may have a higher mineral than what is allowed in drinking water. As far as water that we recharge into the ground, the water has to go through, before you can put water into the ground, you have to get a permit from the Department of Environmental Quality to ensure that it is high enough quality to keep it from polluting the aquifer. Now that said, there are areas perhaps where there was heavy industry or a particular type of industry in the past, maybe in 70 years ago, where unfortunately there was some pollution of groundwater, and in those areas, those water users in those areas are working on actively cleaning up those groundwater pollution plumes, I think is the right word. So as far as protecting reservoirs from pollutants, it's up to us every day to ensure that we manage stormwater, recharge, things like that, so that we're ensuring that we're not polluting our underground stores. Great question.
And to add to that too, we test our water multiple times every day. So we have a very rigorous water quality process that gets followed to make sure that we are meeting those requirements, that the water that's coming in and out meet that. So I like to say that your tap water is actually safer than bottled water because the regulations of that water out of your tap are so much higher than the no regulations actually that are followed for like buying bottled water. And so we know exactly what's in our water and we're testing it constantly. And so it's very highly, I guess you say, regulated. So we're making sure that we're following those rules, whereas bottled water and some of those things, right, they don't necessarily have to follow those same standards. So I always like to throw that out there too. Let's see. Another question is, water systems are highly interconnected. What are some of the ways Peoria works with its neighbors to manage water?
Yeah, that's another great question and very astute. We, of course, are surrounded by other water providers. We have the city of Glendale to our east, the city of Phoenix to our northeast, Glendale to our south, Epcor Water to our west. So we have a lot of other water providers around us. In fact, we have some water providers within city limits. We have Sunrise Water Company and Rose Water Company within our city limits. And the City of Peoria Water Services Department works with those other entities to provide and to build physical interconnections between their pipes and our pipes. Now, generally, those interconnections are not open. They're generally for emergency situations. So If someone has a problem with their treatment plant or their well doesn't turn on, or they have a water quality issue where they just have to shut things down, we can talk to each other and open those interconnects to help each other out. So there's definitely planning and coordination that goes on between our surrounding and also internal water providers. Great question.
Definitely. When it comes to water in Arizona, we think we all understand, those that work in the water world, that we're in it together. And if one fails, that affects everyone. And so it's really a very unique, I think, atmosphere to work in regionally, is because we all know that we have to work together and kind of help each other. So that's exactly right. All right, I will pause about 30 seconds to see if there's any other questions that are coming in. Brett, did you have any other fun facts to share while we kind of pause?
I do have one that I like to brag about. It has to do with efficiency. So you'll sometimes read in the news that maybe some of the older water systems, generally out east, I can think of the Northeast, like a Philadelphia or Baltimore or New York, or that sort of thing. They have older water systems and they have different types of pipes and that sort of thing. And so they can have some leaky systems. And I've seen water loss. So the water utility will produce water. And if you measure the amount you produce and you measure the amount that reaches a customer's tap, that they'll see the difference between that being up to in the range of 25%, meaning they lose 25% of the water they make. It never reaches their customer. And I'm very proud to say that Peoria not only is a fraction of that, but is well under the state's limit. The state's mandated limit is 10%, and Peoria is generally in the 4 to 6% range, which is along the more efficient utilities, particularly newer utilities, and even those that are more highly regulated in Europe. So I'm very proud of our water use efficiency in the city of Peoria, and we're constantly striving to improve it. So that's, I think, a neat fact that people should be proud of when they receive and when they pay their water bill and receive service.
Definitely. And there's wonderful financial impacts of that too, is, we're not paying for water we're not using. That doesn't trickle down to our residents. And then just from a conservation standpoint, I can't imagine just losing 25% of our water. That just stabs you in the heart. And so such a wonderful thing. Good that there are some state requirements as well to try and help cities along, but definitely a pat on the back to Peoria for being far and above and trying to be as efficient as possible. But you're right, there's always still room for improvement with anything. So we'll keep striving for that next step.
Absolutely.
All right, wonderful. Well, I will pause for 30 seconds again to see what other questions come through. I feel like I should have a timer because I'm not very good about counting 30 seconds either. So.
I was gonna say, I got fun facts all day long.
Right? I know, we can talk water all day, that is for sure.
I apologize to those that are work near me.
Well, all right, I don't see any other questions coming in. And then again, we will provide some other opportunities and ways that if you think of something after the fact that you can still share with us, and we're happy to incorporate that and also to respond if it's a question. So we will definitely follow up with that. So that being said, we'll move into back to the slides, and we will go into kind of our next step. All right. So our next steps, we have one more of our town hall sessions. So next Wednesday, this one will be on the topics building and energy, as well as community education and outreach. And so we hope that you join us for this last town hall next week. You can find out more information and register by going to our sustainability website listed right there. We are also doing the finishing touches on our online survey. We hope to have that out next week. So please stay tuned. Again, you'll find that on the website that's listed. We'll have it right there. And so we like to say, please stay connected with us. We have a sustainability newsletter that's brand new. You can register for it on that website that we have as well. There's a button that says join. And I will be sending up updates about the sustainability plan as well as the survey. Once we have that link, will be sent out through that as well. So those are kind of some different ways to stay in touch with us. And so look for that survey soon. We are going to wrap up our outreach and our idea collection in probably mid-March. So the survey will run until about March 15th, and then we'll start collecting finally all this information that we've gathered and begin to draft our plan goals. So that's kind of our plan going forward. So hopefully we will have a good set of goals by early summer that we can begin to draft our final plan from. So very exciting things coming forward. If you would like to provide us more information, we gave you a lot of information today, so I know sometimes things will crop in like a day or two later. Please feel free to email us it is on my screen, it's not showing, so I will read it off. It's conservation@peoriaaz.gov. So conservation@peoriaaz.gov. Send us an email and we will take your information. If you have questions, I will find the answer and we will email that back to you as well. And then lastly, we just want to say thank you for joining us. We understand that your time is precious, and trying to add another virtual meeting on top of a day long of them, we know is difficult. So we value your time with us. Thank you so much for joining, and we hope to see you at our next one next week. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.